Thank you for coming. Yeah, the title of my talk is Whole Person Care. Sounds great, but how? I want to just kind of open this up to when you think of whole person care, I feel like we're kind of in the era where that term gets thrown around a lot. What comes to mind when you think of whole person care? And behavioral health, body, mind, spirit. Yeah. Like I kind of think of just like hippies, just like crunchy granola. I don't know. That's what comes to my mind. So that's what we're going to talk about the rest of the time. No, I'm just kidding. Anybody else? She said nutrition, exercise, social determinants of health. One, I think I'm preaching to the choir with a lot of this stuff, but social determinants of health, we know that 80% of what matters for somebody's health and their outcomes is all the other stuff, right? 20% is having access to the medical care. The other 80%, so to think as a provider that like my role is like real important is missing it, right? Like I got to do my 20% well, but I really need that other 80%, and that's what we're really trying to do at the Hope Clinic. Any other thoughts on whole person care, spiritual care, right? Like this conference is hammering that home, and I think even kind of in our more secular society, like people want. Like that's an important thing, right? To address the spiritual component. Any last thoughts on whole person care? What comes to mind? Warm handoffs. Love a warm handoff. Hard to do in a busy clinic, right? But arguably the compliance rate's a whole lot better when you do it, right? All right, so just to tell you where we're going here, so I'm going to do a quick intro. I'm going to give a little bit of my story. If that's not helpful for you, I'm sorry, but sometimes I feel like knowing where somebody's coming from and hearing a little bit about their journey is helpful. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. I'm going to define kind of what I mean by whole person care because it might be different than how your clinic does it or how you see it. And I by no means have the corner on the market. And then we're going to talk about the physical, mental, social, spiritual is kind of how we break it up. And then have some Q&A at the end here. Okay, that's my family. We're big Charlotte FC fans. We're doing pretty good this year. I don't know, we beat Cincinnati. So I got 2 girls, 2 boys. Bosco, who's, so it's Rhodes, Sedley, Oak, Gus. We got a college student living with us named Caleb. And that's my wife, Ingrid, and then Bosco, who we've kind of adopted in our family. So we just moved. So if this talk is a little all over the place, my brain is a little all over the place, so sorry about that. All right, so I just put this slide up. This is kind of my story a little bit. And I put adventure because I do think, and I was kind of reminded by that. I've been reminded that this whole time at this conference of like, I think God Grant did such a good job this morning of how big God is, right? And he knows every hair on every one of y'all's heads. He knows what you're thinking right now. And he's got you on a specific journey. And adventure, and I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I want adventure, so this is the way I think about walking with God. But I really do think He's got us each on an adventure, and that's part of what I try to communicate with patients is like, hey, what's God doing in this season of your story? And I will share that sometimes I've come here and felt like you start comparing yourself to all these other clinics and all these other providers and all these people, and you're like, how am I, what's going on here? And sometimes it can be discouraging. So if you're feeling that, I just want to tell you that's not from God. God's got you on your journey. A little bit of mine. So this is my mom. This was just a few weeks ago. She celebrated her 70th. We call her the Queen Janine. I'm one of 5 boys. And she is a woman of God. She asked for her 70th birthday to bring the flags home because she wanted to play flag football. So she is a spunky lady. But one of the kind of core memories I have was when I was in elementary school, we went to this kind of wealthy southern church, if you will, and part of my story is kind of coming out of that culture. But there was a guy that went to school with me named Frankie Coe, and Frankie grew up in a trailer park, raised by his grandmother, had like long, dirty fingernails, smelt like cigarette smoke. His aunt smoked, and my mom said he couldn't read, and so my mom started helping him with reading, and he kind of became part of our family. And that was kind of the first like core memory I have of like, I think this is what Jesus does. Like Jesus comes along, people that are on the margins and loves them. And it cost me some social capital. Like bringing him to church, I was like, who's this kid? And I was like, this is my buddy Frankie. And I don't want to sit near him, that was the first kind of, I think my first movement kind of into this movement, if you will, of seeing, hey, God's calling us to use the gifts and abilities He's given us to love other people that might be different. Went to Covenant College, that big tall guy in the middle, his name's Brian Fickert. He wrote When Helping Hurts. His wife's actually here. They started a clinic in Chattanooga. Getting to college, I think I really, growing up, it was like, just tell people that Jesus loves them, And it's like, well, if that seems kind of disingenuous if like they're homeless or they're hungry or their health is really bad, right? And so for me, I studied economics and community development, and they wrote this great book called When Helping Hurts. And I'm assuming a lot of you guys have read that, but kind of saying, hey, you know what? Jesus really cares about the whole person, right? He cares about their health, where they're sleeping, what they're eating, all those things. These are some guys that are here. Robert Campbell, he's from Augusta. He started a clinic there. That's where I grew up, and so he's been a hero. And then Slick Rick Donlin, y'all know him and heard. And then John Perkins, y'all heard all of his story this morning. When I graduated college, I bought a motorcycle in college. My mom said, we're not helping you with college if you keep this. So I sold it, but I said, when I graduate, I'm buying one. So I bought one, went on a 40-day motorcycle trip with a bunch of buddies, but we slept on his floor in Mississippi for a few days and just saw his ministry. And man, he is a hero. I mean, I'm gonna cry just, yeah. I think just knowing the way he's sacrificed and really none of us would be sitting here if he wasn't faithful to the call. All right, last is my dad. This is my dad about my age. I don't know about you guys, but reading about a lot of heroes can sometimes be intimidating, like I talked about earlier. I don't know if y'all read about Paul Farmer. He went to Haiti and opened up all these clinics, but come to find out, like, he is a terrible dad, and his kids hate him and all that stuff. And I realized a few years ago, you know what? My dad is one of my heroes. The dude showed up, worked the same job for 45 years, which towards the end of his career, he's like, all these millennials, they just come here and work for 2 years and leave. He's like, what's going on? But the guy just is faithfully showing up, doing the small things, coached our teams, hadn't done anything big, but he was just faithful in the little things. And so, yeah, I wanted to mention that as well. I think that's a really important part of walking in this community is just doing those little things. All right. Wasn't planning on getting emotional, but it happened. All right, so this is the Hope Community Clinic. We helped get this going about 7 years ago. We were just a Saturday clinic working with a big group that did ESL classes, job skills, soccer, ministry, and it was just a Saturday clinic. Frankly, not great medicine, right? No labs, just like one-off seeing people. I was a resident at the time, was just volunteering, and a complete God thing. A local health system, Novant Health, was recruiting. I told them about this. They said, hey, we want to start supporting that. What if we helped pay you to do this? Because I was looking at raising support. And so anyway, we started seeing patients weekly. At one point we were another name. I won't mention this person's name. He's a celebrity football player from Charlotte. But we got things were going okay with that. And then he got mad at us, kicked us out of the building. We were homeless. And then COVID happened. We got this $3 million grant. We're able to buy this building here. And now all that funding's going away. And gosh, who knows what's happening in Washington with funding. But anyway, that's our journey. So depending on where you're coming from, maybe that's encouraging of just being a clinic that's day-to-day praying, okay, God, what's the next step? But we're in that journey. And we don't have it figured out. But our mission statement is we believe that Christ's love compels us to change the world serving our neighbors. And that's that whole umbrella with the ESL classes. And then our vision, Hope Community Clinic's vision, is to restore hope and wholeness to marginalized neighbors by delivering exceptional integrative care. We provide comprehensive medical care paired with trauma-informed mental health services with a focus on immigrant and refugee community. And I'll just say it's an honor serving alongside these folks pictured and the patients we serve. Just such hardworking, grateful, kind, salt of the earth. Like, I mean, I get blessed just hearing their stories. So it's a treat. These are the people that are kind of co-presenting with me. They've got videos kind of describing each part. So I'm going to move on to the physical, and then Mary Beth there is going to describe our integrative behavioral health and our mental health. Gabby is going to do our social, and then Mark is going to talk about our pastoral care, and I'm going to try and field questions with that. All right, so what is whole person care? This is how I'm defining it as your physical care, your mental, your social, and spiritual. So I had to make that. I tried to use Chat GPT to make that, and it wasn't very good, so my wife actually made that because I'm a little technically challenged. But anyway, feel free to steal it. Would love for that to go viral, if you will. All right, so physical health, this is kind of my domain. So when I'm taking a physical, these are the things that I'm talking about, and I'm just going to give a few things that I think could be helpful to your practice, and this is more for providers. The Old Ways has these cool kind of Mediterranean diet-ish stuff, but that's like more pertinent to each culture. So we have these up on our walls. That's been kind of a fun thing to have because it's like you want it to resonate with what they eat. So it's online, Old Ways, but they sell big old posters you can put up in the exam room. So I'm always like pointing at the different things. So I'm not just saying the same thing every time. Exercise, obviously we talk about exercise, so I'll leave it at that. One of the cool things I will point out about this is it does at the bottom talk about eating and exercising together. We know that doing stuff alone is not the best. I don't think God intended us like eating fast food, driving around our cities, which I do that. But you eat slower and you eat less a lot of times if you eat with other people, and then you exercise more and go harder when you do it with other people. So I do try to always bring that up. Substance use, the old joke is how many beers do you drink? Just multiply it by 2, Okay, screenings for our clinic. One cool thing, we've partnered with Cologuard, and we're working on this actually, but they have a program where if you don't know about Cologuard's a stool test that's good for 3 years. If you're doing fit testing, it's every year. It's kind of impossible to get everybody up to date on that all the time, but at least with Cologuard, it's 3 years. But they have a program, if you'll jump through their hoops, they'll send you 10 free ones each month. And so we're in the process of doing that, but we've partnered with them at my other clinic, the Michael Jordan Clinic, and they've been giving free ones to all our uninsured. So something to check into there. Obviously, you need to, if you're doing labs, we are partnering with LabCorp to get subsidized labs. That might be something to think about with your local lab group. Are they willing to write some of those things off? PAP with HPV testing, that just makes it so that you don't have to do them as often and save some costs there. And then we have partnered with Novant Health to get Epic access, so our EMR. So some of you guys, we were on Practice Fusion, which was a free one for a long time. But if that's something maybe you can negotiate with your big health system of saying, hey, we are keeping people out of your emergency department and taking care. Would you consider giving us Epic access or whatever EMR they're using? And it's great because then you can see all the ED visits and everything else. I mean, it's really helped us tremendously. The other cool thing is we've created a dashboard that's shown once patients establish care with us, their ED utilization goes down 40%, readmissions rates go down 50%. And that really speaks to hospital administrators, right? They want to see numbers and see that the money matters. Vaccines, we have had to get creative. We don't have vaccines at our place, but there's a local community cruiser through one of the big hospitals that we send people to and get vaccines done. So just hoping this, if you're in this situation, this maybe spurs some encouragement to look. And then we've gotten into point of care ultrasound and just say that can save you a lot of cost with imaging, so it might be worth doing some training around that. Okay, so that's really the physical. Any questions about that? Or if you guys in other clinics are like, hey, I know of some other things that are helpful, would love to hear them because this is definitely a group effort. All right, we're going to move on to the mental. So I'm going to let Mary Beth take it away.
Hello, my name is Mary Beth. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the IBH provider at our clinic. As the IBH provider, I hold a few different roles.
Let me pause that. IBH is Integrative Behavioral Health.
First of all, I have helped develop our screening process. and help to run and implement that. So as far as mental health screenings, for annual and well child visits, we always want to screen for mental health. For adults, we do the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7 every time. And then for kids, we have some different screenings we do based on their age. For teenagers, we always do the PHQ-9 to get a reading for depression. I believe that's really important to do for teenagers. We also do PEARLS and then the PSC-17 youth version, so they fill that out for themselves. For kids that are 6 to 11, we do the PEARLS screener and then also the PSC-17 that their parents fill out. For kids that are infants up to age 5, we do the PEARLS and we do the SWIC. And those help us really get just kind of an idea of what's going on with each patient. In addition to that, whenever we have a patient coming in that has a history of mental health problems or has spoken with one of us in the past about mental health issues, I make sure that we go ahead and do a PHQ-9 and GAD-7 for them at that time too, just to check in and see how things are doing. As the IBH provider, I will go into the medical appointment, usually after the doctor or other provider has gone in, and I will talk to a patient about how they're doing mentally. We will talk about stress, about depression, about anxiety. Hopefully I've already seen their screener, and so I have some idea of what their scores are and how they're doing. And at that point, I am assessing the patient to see what kind of needs they have. Would they be a good candidate to be added to our wait list to be seen by a therapist regularly? Or can I do a short-term intervention with them right there in the appointment that would help them, give them some tools to use as they leave? And so sometimes it's one or both of those or a mixture of some kind. I do some CBT interventions. I also have done some recent traumatic event EMDR interventions right in the medical appointment. And when that's appropriate, that's something that's really helpful for me to do. And then I'll also provide them with psychoeducation about depression or anxiety or stress, about coping. We will practice things like deep breathing and butterfly taps. And then I'll communicate with the provider about how they're doing. Sometimes we talk about medication and I can give my opinion. And then I also can provide that psychoeducation with the patient if they decide to take some medication to address the depression or the anxiety or whatever. We also do a lot of psychoeducation about trauma in our IBH program. And a lot of times this is the first time that a patient has really heard about trauma. And so they're just beginning to understand how it may be impacting their life. And so this is kind of a way that we introduce our patients to this understanding. And then other than that, sometimes I kind of play the go-between between the medical provider and the behavioral health therapist that the patient might be seeing, and help coordinate things between the two of them and just make sure that the patient is getting all of their needs covered. Thank you.
Okay. So a couple things I'll just say about our integrated behavioral health. I mean, one, to your point, the warm handoff has been amazing to have somebody that you they might be learning what anxiety and depression is for the first time. I mean, a lot of our refugee and immigrant folks, I mean, mental health's not really a thing, So you're kind of explaining what anxiety is, what trauma is, how it, you're in fight or flight and it's making your heartbeat and you're not having a heart attack, you're having a panic attack, right? And so to have somebody kind of explain, well, I don't want to talk to somebody about my problems, but to have them come in, and Mary Beth does it, but we also have some native Spanish speakers that come in, and to be able to just do a short intervention and realize like, oh, that was actually helpful versus that was weird or whatever they're thinking it's going to be like. And so they almost get a quick intro. So I would say if in your organization, if you're not doing that, sometimes that can be, even if it's just, you might think, oh, I need an hour session, but even just 10 or 15 or 5 minutes. There's been a lot of studies that show this, we call it the Cherokee model. It's Cherokee Health. I think it's in a few different regions of the country, but basically they've showed that diabetes, compliant A1Cs, medication compliance, all that stuff vastly improves if you employ IBH, because obviously a lot of behavioral things are what ultimately contributes to people's compliance to things. EMDR, show of hands, y'all know what EMDR is? Okay, about half. EMDR, eye motion desensitization reprocessing. It sounds like voodoo, but basically you're talking about your trauma while doing some hand movements or some eye movements, and it's this amazing thing where like your brain kind of recompartmentalizes your trauma and it quits flooding you at all times or as frequently. And I mean, I've seen people come off their blood pressure medication, off their antidepressants because they've had that. So anyway, that's one of the things our team employs. So if you've got behavioral health and you're not doing that, I would encourage you can get training in that, and that's been pretty cool. Any other questions about our IBH or any things that you guys are doing in your clinics that's working that might be helpful to say? Yes. The question was, do we ever kind of consult back and forth? And yeah, like a lot of times between myself and Mary Beth, I'll say, hey, this person's got anxiety. I'm starting them on Zoloft. We've talked about exercise. We've talked about spiritual disciplines, and they're interested in counseling. Will you chat with them? And then sometimes it's like we're seeing, somebody where they've got really resistant depression, and we're looping in the psychiatrist as well. But yeah, and a lot of that's over, like our EMR's, messaging sometimes as well. So it's not always in person. So I'm going to move on to the social.
Hello everyone, my name is Gabriela. I am the lead social worker at Hope Community Clinic. And so with that title comes a lot of different responsibilities and experiences, and I'm so happy to be sharing them with you today. So as the lead social worker, I am kind of the point person for when people are interested in either medical care or behavioral health care. And so I assist people with getting connected to our services by going through an application process with them and an intake process. And in that intake process is where the magic begins. So we start with understanding what are the social drivers of health that are impacting this person. So that is anything from food insecurity to transportation issues, housing stability, difficulty with financial resources, social connections, stress, etc. All these little aspects of life that you don't really think of when you go to a doctor's appointment, but really determine what happens after that 20 minutes with your provider. And so our team, we have a case manager and a community health worker and myself. We all work together to get that information on the front end, to understand this is the context that this person is living in. So then as they come in to establish care with the provider, the provider is aware of, the experiences and sometimes even the patient's willingness to adhere to certain medical treatments or ability to obtain certain resources. And so that is a lot of the focus of the work that we do. It's not only understanding the barriers, but also addressing them, creating bridges in those gaps of care so that people can receive quality care from their providers. And so aside from that, we also are on call for our providers to assist them with those same social determinants of health needs. So let's say a patient comes in for a follow-up on their diabetes, and we find out, hey, they're having a lot of trouble obtaining their medication because they lost their job. And so that's when we say, oh, you would definitely qualify for this assistance program that gets you your medication delivered to your house for free. So we jump in right there in their visit, and we help them fill out these documents, we advocate for them, and we get them connected to that resource. Same if they need a specialty care appointment, we'll collaborate with our referral coordinators to get them access to that program, help them apply for that program, just to make sure that they are getting access to a healthcare system that is not often designed for them. And of course, there's always food insecurity. For example, you are a patient with diabetes, you don't have access to nutritious food, and that therefore impacts the diet portion of your treatment. And so addressing those needs, making sure they have fresh food, meat, vegetables, eggs, all of these things that can be really good for that healing process for the patient. We work hard to make sure that they have access to those things. And more than anything, make sure that they have community and that they have a connection to others that care for them aside from their medical team. And so that's just a little bit of what we do. If mental health or stress needs come up as well, we'll collaborate with Mary Beth, our integrated behavioral health provider, to make sure that those needs are also being addressed, and we're connecting them to the appropriate person to care for their heart and their mind as well. And so, yeah, love what we do, and I hope we get to do it for a really long time. Thanks.
So we're screening everybody for food insecurity, and man, with inflation and everything going on, it's almost like everybody has food insecurity. So that is, I will say, that's a great way to partner with churches. I feel like churches are always like, can we do something? And I'm like, sometimes volunteers are more work than they are help, right? But food bags is like great. Like drop off 20 food bags this week, right? And we'll give them out to people that need them. So just wanted to highlight that. And I got to brag on Celeste back here. She is our, what is your title? Community health worker. A lot of times people bring hospital bills, right? They got all of these bills. Number one cause of debt in our country, or bankruptcy. And she'll work with them to either navigate getting Medicaid or talking with the different health systems to get a plan or get some of that written off. So that's been a huge, I mean, man, when you got 20 grand looming on your shoulders, that'll make, I mean, I'd be depressed. My PHQ now would be off the charts, right? Or my GAD-7. So helping with that stuff has been big. Moving on to our spiritual, this is Mark.
Hello, CCHF. I'm Mark Landon, family advocate at Hope Community Clinic. I play a few different roles here at HCC. One of the main roles that I play is spiritual care. So whenever a provider or a counselor is in conversation with a patient or client and they realize that they might need to have conversations around spiritual issues, they make a referral to me. People are very complex with complex stories, and spirituality is almost always a part of that. So the first time I ever heard anybody talk about spirituality as a part of integrated care was when Dr. Wilson would talk about whole person care. And I became excited to imagine what that could look like for people to heal holistically, with spirituality being a part of that. One's faith can be a source of great encouragement, strength, solace, and we want to incorporate those things into the conversation. A person's spiritual journey can be deeply restorative for them, especially as we attend to the hard questions that inevitably arise, because there's always those hard questions. When I began this role at Hope, most of my life at this point had been ministry, youth ministry, church ministry. And I was reticent to get involved with healthcare because I didn't see that opportunity to talk about spiritual things. But when we think about integrated care, we have an opportunity to talk about everything a person needs, and spirituality is a key part of that. We believe that every person's journey is sacred, and we want to honor and respect that wherever they are in their journey, their religious journey, their cultural journey, and we honor that. But we also want to look for ways to engage in conversations around who Jesus is and what he offers us, because we believe that he really does offer hope. Everything we do is as trauma informed as possible. That comes into even how we have our spiritual conversations. We know that some of our families have experienced religious abuse and trauma, and we want to be respectful of those things. We also want to be willing to walk with them and to dive into the hard questions. People often wonder where God is when they've been through these hard things, or they've been hurt by the church or by people with religious authority. So we do that with our patients and clients, but we also do that with our staff. Our staff are very diverse in their spiritual walks, and we want to also honor and respect that and engage people where they are. We want to walk alongside people where they are and to never put pressure. We want to offer everything open in an open-handed way. So we do some of that through regular daily devotions that are offered and through monthly soul care. And everything we do, we want to integrate faith, and we want that to be more than just stamping Jesus' name on everything. Jesus is often used by people with all kinds of different agendas, and so we want to avoid that, and we actually want to offer simply who Jesus is. Jesus is a person who's full of the fruit of the Spirit. He's the example of that for us, full of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control. And so that's what we want to offer people, whether they're people on the team, on their journeys, or the people that we serve, the families that we serve. We want to offer that Jesus who is full of the fruit of the Spirit. And as we do, we're just willing to walk into the dark places with people where they have pain in their spiritual journey and where they have unanswered questions, and we sit with them and we help them to move forward. We help people as they discern what their spiritual longings and yearnings are, and we bring Jesus into the equation, but gently. And as we do those things, we hope that we will offer hope. And that pun is intended because we are Hope Community Clinic. Thank you.
Love that dad joke by Mark. So, I mean, don't you just want to like get a cup of coffee with Mark? I mean, he's the perfect guy for this job. I will just say, you know, I want to be careful, but being a Christian and seeing kind of the evangelical right support a guy in our country that does not bear the fruits of the Spirit, I think is that fair to say? It's been a really difficult time to address spiritual. I mean, there's a lot of hurt, right? And we probably all have some spiritual hurt from the church. And so I think, you know, what I'm finding is every patient cares about the spiritual, right? I mean, I always say, what you believe about why you're here, what's your purpose, why bad things happen, right? Like we're all spiritual, but a lot of people have been burned by the church and are not going back, right? Or they've been maybe proselytized and feel like that is coming with, you know, with some other things hanging on. And so try to really ask open-ended questions about that. And then if people are willing to engage, and some people will say, you know, I've really been burned, and I'll say, well, man, you know, we've already been in here 20, 30 minutes. Love for you to connect with Mark, and let's hear about it. Let's talk it out. So that's been one thing. And then, like he said, I mean, we're trying to do a daily, just kind of 2-minute little devotional each morning. Just, hey, here's a quick word of encouragement and a prayer, optional for our staff. We are a faith-based clinic, but you don't have to make a profession of faith to work on our staff. So like he said, we've got people on all steps of their spiritual journey. So it's really, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity within our staff to love people, and he does a great job with that. We try to do once a week. We call it soul care. We're going through the fruits of the Spirit and talking about those at lunch one day a week. Just show you one other thing. This is a busy slide, but this is a little handout I give to patients. A lot of times when we're talking about anxiety and depression, they're not sleeping well at night, and I'll say, hey, there's this great spiritual discipline called the prayer of examen, and I have this in Spanish and English. I'm happy to give it to you guys. But it's a real simple thing, and I try to do it just like you do curls to get biceps, right? You do spiritual disciplines to build your spiritual faith, and so it's just examining your day, thanking God for the good things. We know gratitude lowers stress hormones, lowers our heart rate, ask forgiveness for whatever we need to ask forgiveness for that day, and then just giving whatever we're worried about over. And a lot of times I fall asleep doing that. And so just encouraging, like here's a tangible thing you could go try tonight when you go to bed and see. Take that with your trazodone, you know, or whatever we're doing. But I'll say, hey, if you're starting to exercise and you're starting to meet with a counselor and we're hitting it from, you know, we're starting to address your social and your spiritual, man, like we're going to see some improvement here. Well, guys, thank y'all. I felt like this was a group effort, so thank you for all your contribution, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions.